Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're going to take a deep dive into a recent, really deeply disturbing case from Kolkata, India. It's a story that, well, it shocked the nation and raised some serious, very uncomfortable questions about safety, about corruption, and, the fight for justice. We've got a stack of source material here detailing the tragic events around the death of a young doctor. This happened at a major medical college hospital back in August 2024. So what we want to do today is guide you through these sources. We'll pull out the essential facts, highlight some of the frankly surprising details, and explore the unfolding layers of this very complex story.
And what's really fascinating and just heartbreaking here isn't just the tragic event itself. It's how the reaction to it, it seemed to expose these potential systemic issues within the hospital. And it actually sparked this significant movement, for change within the medical community and really far beyond it. It forces us to ask a pretty difficult question, I think. What happens when the very place that's meant to heal, a hospital, becomes the site of a horrific crime? And worse, when those in power seem, maybe more interested in a cover-up than actually finding the truth.
Exactly. And to really understand the depth here, we need to start with who was lost. The sources refer to the victim using a pseudonym, Dr. A. She was a resident 2 in respiratory medicine at Ajijika Medical College and Hospital in Kolkata. And the sources note this is one of India's oldest, most respected medical colleges.
Yeah, and her personal story, based on what the sources tell us, it's incredibly compelling. Came from a humble background, apparently highly motivated. She chose medicine over engineering, wanted to help people. That was her passion. Graduated from J&M Hospital, seen by her family as, their great hope, their pride.
The sources also give us some really critical context about medical training in India. It's described as just incredibly demanding. The hours are brutal. The sources mention Dr. A sometimes worked shifts like 36 hours straight.
Wow.
Yeah, it really shines a light on maybe a lack of adequate support systems. One source even cited a statistic suggesting maybe 1 in 4 doctors in India might be suffering from depression.
And the physical environment, that seems relevant too. We learned from the sources there wasn't any dedicated housing on site for residents when they were on call. So they'd end up trying to rest in shared spaces, seminar rooms, lecture halls, that kind of thing.
Right. But despite all that, the challenging environment, the demanding work, Dr. A is consistently described as dedicated, loved by her patients. She wasn't just, going through the motions. She was passionate about improving India's healthcare system.
Clearly someone with immense potential. And her death is just a profound loss, not just for her family, but, for the medical community, the people she would have served.
Okay, let's shift now to the night everything changed. And the shocking discovery that followed. The timeline here is absolutely critical based on the sources.
It starts August 8th, 2024. Around 11 p.m. that night, Dr. A had her last contact with her family, sent a message saying she was on a really heavy shift.
Then much later, around 2 a.m. on August 9th, she apparently went out near the hospital, just briefly for food, with 2 junior doctors. About an hour later, maybe 3 a.m., they all came back to the hospital. And according to the sources, Dr. A went alone to this 3rd floor seminar room, the kind of place residents used to rest. The 2 junior doctors, they went home. The sources are really specific. She was alone in that room from about 3 a.m. onwards.
And the discovery was made later that same morning. Around 7:30 a.m., August 9th, she didn't show up for rounds, which was apparently very unusual for her. So a colleague got concerned, started searching, got a hospital employee to help, and that's when they found her, in that 3rd floor seminar room.
And the description in the sources of how she was found is just horrifying. It immediately suggested something was terribly wrong. Found semi-nude, multiple bruises, injuries all over her body. The sources emphasize her body was twisted, distorted, especially her legs, bent in a severely unnatural way.
Yeah, this was clearly not, a natural death, or even the kind of suicide scene that was later suggested. Not at all.
And this is where the actions after the discovery, as the sources detail them, become highly suspicious and really contribute to the whole scandal.
Right. The news spread like wildfire within the hospital once she was found.
But the way the hospital communicated with Dr. A's family, it was reportedly inconsistent, misleading even. The first call, they told the family she was ill.
Okay.
Then a second call, as they were already driving to the hospital, completely changed the story.
Yeah.
Said she was dead and implied they suspected suicide.
Wow. That inconsistency alone.
Yeah.
You can imagine how worrying that must have been for the family.
Absolutely. And then there was the obstruction. When they got there, sources say hospital staff, officials, they prevented her parents from seeing her body.
For how long?
for about 3 hours, giving different reasons, apparently.
3 hours.
It was only after other doctors and staff gathered, put pressure on the administration, that the parents were finally allowed to see her.
That's incredibly telling, isn't it?
It is. And the sources also mentioned this alleged attempt to rush the cremation. On August 9th, the same day she was found, the hospital supposedly pressured the family. Take the body for cremation quickly. Even suggested it would speed up compensation or insurance.
That feels incredibly callous.
Yeah.
And suspicious. Did they agree?
No, the family refused, thankfully.
Okay, good. And what about the police? When were they called?
Well, this is maybe one of the most suspicious things highlighted in the sources, the delay. The hospital reportedly waited, get this, 14 hours before reporting the death to the police.
14 hours?
Yeah.
From a major hospital?
Yes. And apparently they only did it after significant pressure from the medical staff who knew something was very wrong.
That delay, that's a massive red flag. Huge.
And it didn't even stop there. A few days later, August 13th, doctors noticed something else really strange. The hospital admin was apparently trying to renovate, maybe even demolish, a bathroom right next door to the seminar room where she was found.
A bathroom? Why?
They were removing fixtures like urinals. Many doctors saw it as a potential attempt to, clean up, maybe destroy evidence, perhaps a place someone tried to wash up afterwards.
Right. So these early actions,
Yeah.
obstruction, delay, trying to rush things, this weird renovation, it paints a picture, doesn't it? It suggests, according to the sources, an immediate pattern that just screams something's being hidden. Completely contradicts any simple suicide explanation.
And then came the official post-mortem findings, which, as detailed in the sources, leave absolutely zero doubt about the brutality Dr. A suffered and just completely demolish that initial suicide suggestion, the autopsy report. It's horrific. Describes blood from her eyes, likely burst blood vessels, maybe an injury from a broken spectacle lens, blood from her mouth, head, genitals.
Just devastating injuries. What else did it find?
Clear teeth marks or bite marks, deep abrasions on her face and body, and crucially, severe pressure marks around her mouth and nose area, strongly suggesting her face was forcefully slammed, maybe against a wall.
Oh my God.
There is also clear evidence of sexual assault, injuries to the genital area, a foreign object, a hairpin found internally, and a really significant quantity of seminal fluid found inside her body, about 151 milligrams.
151 milligrams. Is that a lot?
The sources specifically highlight this. They note that 151 milligrams is unusually high. Apparently, a typical single ejaculation is more like 20 milligrams.
Okay, so
So this large quantity led investigators, and the sources discussing it, to strongly suspect there could have been more than one perpetrator involved in the assault.
that makes chilling sense, given the other injuries. What else?
The physical trauma was just extreme. Sources describe severe distortion, bending of her legs folded up towards her head. A pelvic bone fracture.
The kind of injuries that would take immense force.
Exactly. The sources point out the sheer strength likely needed, again suggesting potentially multiple attackers.
And the cause of death.
Asphyxiation, due to neck compression, specifically noting a fracture of the hyoid bone or cartilage in her neck.
So, strangulation or forceful compression.
Yes, a key indicator. She likely suffered tremendously before she died.
I can't even imagine. How did her colleagues react to these findings?
Profoundly affected, according to the sources, fellow medical professionals. Some called it one of the most brutal, disturbing scenes they'd ever encountered in their careers.
Understandable. It must have created this atmosphere of fear among the staff, too. Of their own safety.
Absolutely. Working within those same hospital walls. Yeah.
So, after that huge delay, the police investigation finally starts. What did they find initially?
Well, the sources detail some early evidence. Crucially, CCTV footage from near that third floor seminar room. It reportedly showed a suspect entering the area around 3 a.m. and leaving around 3:40 a.m. on August 9th.
Which lines up perfectly with the time Dr. A was known to be alone in there.
Exactly. Investigators also found a Bluetooth earbud near the scene.
A physical clue.
Yes, and this small thing was later linked, through a phone connection apparently, to one of the initial suspects, physically placing him near the crime scene around the right time.
Okay, so who was this initial suspect?
The first person introduced as a suspect in the sources is a man named Sanjay Roy. He was identified as a civic volunteer working at the hospital, employed under the local police unit, actually.
As civic volunteer.
Yeah.
Okay. What about his background?
It immediately raised red flags, according to the sources. A history of crime. Multiple marriages, 4 times to 3 different women. documented domestic abuse.
And disturbingly, he'd reportedly been detained for assaulting another woman less than a week before Dr. A's death.
But somehow he was released and allowed to keep working at the hospital.
That's deeply concerning. What about him being there at 3 a.m.? Was that normal for his job?
Highly suspicious, the sources say. His usual job involved morning or evening shifts. So him being on the third floor around 3 a.m. with no legitimate reason mentioned, a major point of concern.
So he's arrested.
Yes, Sanjay Roy was arrested. And reportedly, he confessed to the crime.
He confessed, just like that.
He confessed, but the sources note he refused to give specific details about what happened. And troublingly, he apparently even requested the death penalty.
Okay, that's strange. A confession, but no details, asking for death. Coupled with the sheer brutality, the forensic evidence pointing to maybe multiple people, did people believe he acted alone?
Widespread doubts and suspicion, according to the sources. Both the public and the medical community were really skeptical. Could he have inflicted all those injuries himself? Was he maybe a scapegoat, part of a larger conspiracy or cover-up involving others? That was the immediate feeling.
Right. That makes sense. So this dissatisfaction, it didn't just stay as quiet doubt, did it?
Not at all. It quickly escalated into significant protests. Medical professionals, citizens joining them, they organized demonstrations right at the hospital, demanding a transparent investigation, demanding justice for Dr. A.
And the pressure must have fallen squarely on the hospital administration.
Directly. Especially the director, Dr. Sandeep Ghosh, and the medical college director, Dr. Sanjoy Vakuspati. Loud calls for their resignations started building.
Were there any immediate consequences for the admin?
There were some actions, yeah, though controversial. August 11th, just 2 days after the discovery, Dr. Sanjoy Vakuspati, the medical college director, he was removed, reportedly for negligence.
Okay, so one removal. What about the wider medical community?
Major associations like FMARP, the Federation of Resident Doctors Association, and the IMA, the Indian Medical Association, they really escalated things.
You weren't happy with just one arrest, right? They wanted a deeper look.
Exactly. They demanded an investigation that went way beyond just Sanjay Roy.
And this pressure, it led to something pretty significant, didn't it? A nationwide action.
It did. Doctors across India went on strike, obviously excluding emergency services, but it was a powerful statement, a way to force authorities to take this seriously, demand transparency, accountability.
And the pressure on Dr. Sandeep Ghosh, the hospital director, must have been immense, especially after his initial comments.
Yes, his early suggestion that Dr. A might have had mental health issues, committed suicide, that was seen as incredibly dismissive, insensitive, given the evidence that was already emerging. It really fueled the anger.
So, did he eventually step down?
He did. On August 17th, Dr. Sandeep Ghosh resigned as hospital director.
There was a catch, wasn't there? Something that caused even more outrage.
A huge catch, according to the sources. Just 9 hours after resigning under all this scrutiny, he reportedly took a director position at another nearby medical college.
9 hours. Seriously.
Seriously. That move, you can imagine, just poured fuel on the fire, led to huge demands for his actions, his potential involvement, to be investigated thoroughly.
Unbelievable. And there was also violence during the protests, wasn't there? A specific incident.
Yeah, a deeply concerning event highlighted in the sources. August 14th, there was a peaceful protest, organized under a campaign called Name the Night, medical professionals, public members.
And what happened?
Suddenly, this huge group, estimated around 7,000 men, sources say they arrived by truck. They just appeared.
7,000 men. Where did they come from?
That wasn't immediately clear, but they reportedly attacked the peaceful protesters, caused injuries, damaged property, and disturbingly, some of this group even managed to get inside the hospital, went to the scene of the crime.
And the police response?
Notably slow, according to sources. Protesters apparently made something like 12 calls before police took action.
12 calls. That leads to obvious suspicions, doesn't it? Complicity. Intentional delay.
Exactly. Serious questions were raised about the authorities' response to that incident.
So with all this, the protests, the media storm, the very credible suspicions of a cover-up involving the hospital, maybe even the police, what happened next with the investigation?
The case was transferred. Given the complexity and suspicion, it went to India's Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI. That happened on August 14th.
The CBI, India's top agency. That signals how serious this has become.
Absolutely. And the CBI immediately showed they meant business, formed a special 25-person team just for this investigation.
And where did their focus turn first?
Right towards the administration, Dr. Sandeep Ghosh, the former hospital director, he was intensely questioned. Sources mention even using a lie detector test.
And he became a suspect.
He did. Based on their findings, he soon became a suspect in the murder case itself, not just negligence.
Wow. Did the CBI make more arrests?
Yes, as they dug deeper.
Yeah.
August 24th, they arrested 6 more suspects, all reportedly linked somehow to the Ejijika hospital, though the sources didn't specify their roles or names.
And they searched homes too, right?
They did. CBI searched the homes of both Dr. Sandeep Ghosh and the other director who was removed earlier, Dr. Sanjoy Vachaspati.
Okay, so the net is widening. Then came some really big developments in September.
Huge developments, September 14th. The CBI arrested Dr. Sandeep Ghosh. Initially, the charges were reportedly about dereliction of duty, corruption related to the hospital.
But there was another arrest that same day, wasn't there? A crucial one.
Yes, absolutely crucial. Simultaneously, they arrested police officer Abhijit Modak.
Who was he?
He was the original police investigator from the local station that handled the initial report, after that 14-hour delay.
Arresting the first investigating officer.
The sources state this strongly suggests an attempted cover-up was suspected right from the very beginning.
That's explosive. And then came the forensic link.
The very next day, September 15th, forensic evidence confirmed it. Dr. Sandeep Ghosh's DNA was found on Dr. A's body.
His DNA on her body.
Yes, which led to immediate additional charges against him, rape and murder.
So the main suspects identified by the CBI, based on the sources.
Primarily 3 for the rape and murder. Sanjay Roy, the civic volunteer. Dr. Sandeep Ghosh, the former director, now linked by DNA. And police officer Abhijit Modak, the initial investigator, suspected in the cover-up.
Only other arrests.
Reportedly related to wider corruption within the hospital admin. Sources mention maybe around 13 people in total potentially involved in corruption schemes there.
Which brings us to that bigger picture theory, doesn't it? The idea of dark secrets and systemic corruption within the hospital.
Exactly. It's speculation and claims circulating in the sources, but they mention things like alleged illegal businesses, drug trade, even organ trafficking, prostitution, bribery for better treatment.
Just a whole network of alleged illicit activity.
Yes. And the theory, strongly suggested in some sources, is that Dr. A might have stumbled onto something, discovered some of these secrets.
And was murdered to silence her before she could expose it.
That's the theory. And it gains some morbid weight because sources also mentioned there had apparently been 3 or 4 other sudden or, quote, accidental deaths of medical staff at that same hospital before Dr. A's murder, deaths that hadn't been fully explained.
Chilling. And beyond the hospital, this case really struck a nerve nationally, didn't it?
Absolutely. It put a harsh spotlight on the vulnerability of women in society there. And sadly, the issue of victim blaming came up.
How so?
Sources mentioned that during legal proceedings, the suggestion was reportedly made that Dr. A's clothing might have provoked the attacks.
Seriously. Blaming her clothes.
Reportedly, yes. Though sources add that a judge rejected that line of argument in court. But it shows how quickly that kind of thinking can surface.
Disgusting. So the protests continued even after the CBI took over. What were they demanding?
Yes, they continued. Calling for major reforms, better safety in hospitals nationwide.
Like what specifically?
Things like much more CCTV surveillance in all hospital areas, more security personnel properly trained.
And crucially, dedicated, secure on-site housing for resident doctors. So they aren't vulnerable in shared, semi-public rooms late at night.
Exactly. And there were renewed calls to finally pass the Medical Protection Act. It's a bill first introduced back in 2020, apparently, but never passed into law, designed specifically to protect healthcare workers from violence.
So where does the case stand now, according to the sources?
It's reportedly moving towards a verdict. For the 3 main suspects, Sanjay Roy, Dr. Sandeep Ghosh, Abhijit Modak, a verdict was expected relatively soon, specifically October 14th, 2024, based on the source timing.
And the potential sentence.
Sources note if they're convicted on the rape and murder charges, the death penalty is a possibility. So we've really walked through the layers of this incredibly difficult case from the sources, from that initial horrifying discovery, through the hospital's suspicious actions, the wave of protests, the CBI taking over, uncovering alleged corruption, a potential cover-up. It's a lot.
It really is. What started as this deeply tragic death of a dedicated, promising young doctor, it just rapidly snowballed. It became a case that ripped the curtain back, didn't it? Shining this harsh national light on potential corruption, alleged cover-ups reaching high levels apparently, and highlighting the very real, serious dangers faced by people working in healthcare every single day, often under unbelievable pressure.
And maybe the most powerful thing this case does, as presented in the sources, is force us all to confront some really uncomfortable questions. Questions about power, about how systemic rot can potentially take hold in institutions we're supposed to trust, and about the immense courage it takes for individuals, maybe like Dr. A, or for whole communities, like those protesting doctors, to push for truth, to push for justice, especially when the very institutions meant to protect them seem to fail, or worse, maybe even seem complicit.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does it actually take to ensure that places of healing are genuinely safe havens? For everyone inside, patients, staff, trainees especially. And what does it take to make sure that people who might uncover darkness, who might expose wrongdoing, are protected, listened to, not silenced?
Some heavy questions indeed. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us into this complex and frankly challenging story. We really encourage you to keep thinking about the critical issues this case brings up, from the absolute necessity of workplace safety in healthcare settings to that ongoing, vital fight for transparency and accountability in all our institutions.